Good afternoon, America and the world. Today is Monday, January 27th, 2025. You are viewing Issues and Answers on the WCEG Network. I am your host, Norman A. Carter Jr. My goal is to enlighten your perspectives about our environment, our socio-political struggles, those banes of classism and racism that make all of our lives more difficult than they should be, and in so doing, our hope is to bring all of us together in a human tapestry of brotherhood and sisterhood, bound together by threads of understanding, respect, and tolerance of our physical, racial, and religious differences. Hopefully, we can have a discussion of ideas based on facts, not fiction, that will encourage us to think critically and not emotionally. There was a saying that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King quoted, which says, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." We need to remember that these days. We certainly do. Now, if you're currently watching, we thank you and inform your neighbors and friends and associates that we can be viewed via YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and over streaming devices such as Roku. Our podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Amazon, Spotify, and JioSaavn platforms. All of our programs are archived on YouTube and can be viewed by anyone at any time. Please understand that the topics and opinions on Issues and Answers are those of the host and my guest host, and not the WCEG Network. So let's get moving on this installment of Issues and Answers. Now, I do expect that we will have a guest. I think he's delayed, but as soon as he pops in and is able to shake himself loose, he will be with us. But in the meantime, I'd like to remind you that today, January 27th, 2025, is the 80th anniversary of Holocaust Liberation Remembrance Day. Let us never forget that while millions were being systematically murdered in Europe because of their Jewish heritage, this country and others stood by and did nothing until the malignancy of Nazism began to creep towards our shores. The American boom was real. I encourage all of you to revisit WCEG's Issues and Answers broadcast of February 8th, 2021. It's on YouTube. Just look it up. Issues and Answers with Norman A. Carter Jr., WCEG on YouTube. It's entitled The American Apocalypse. Now, all of you who laughed at or ignored history while you were in school are now witnessing the re-emergence of pre-World War II racial and religious intolerance, both here in America and throughout our civilized world. As the old blues singer Leadbelly once said, stay woke. Read the poem First They Came by Martin Niemöller. I'm pretty sure that's the way you pronounce it. And while I have you here for a minute, I want to read it to you. It won't take long, but let me tell you who this man was. The poem is called First They Came. It is a poetic form of a post-World War confessional by German Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller. It is about the cowardice. Listen to this. It is about the cowardice of German intellectuals and certain clergy. I want to repeat that. It's about the cowardice of German intellectuals and certain clergy, including, by his own admission, himself. following the Nazis' rise to power and subsequent incremental purging of those chosen targets, group after group. Now, many variations and adaptations of this poem are out there. But here is, I think, the most accurate. It's called First They Came. First, they came for the communists. I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. And you know, here in the United States of America, there are a group of people who are being targeted and persecuted primarily because of their race. Primarily because these were people who were running to the United States to save their lives. The inscription on the Statue of Liberty right outside of Ellis Island, New York, beckons, bring me your tired, your weary, your poor. That's the United States of America. Ain't what's happening now. Ain't what's happening now. I posted on Facebook this morning because some of you just don't care. You really don't. But I posted on Facebook this morning that a lot of you are laughing at or don't care about um, this the attack on Latin American people that's going on in this country. And they're using the euphemism of they're crossing our southern border. Okay. Nobody's talking about what's coming across the northern border from Canada. Nobody. I wonder why. And you know what they're not talking about? And the vice president and the president and all of their lackeys, they're talking about, well, you know, we want to get these criminals out of our country. I hear you. I hear them. I want criminals out of our country too, especially the homegrown ones. But you know what? Donald Trump and his vice president and his shadow vice president, Elon Musk, they're not talking about that ring of criminals in Brighton Beach, New York, the Russian mafia, many of whom are illegal immigrants. They're not talking about moving them out. They're not sending any buses in Brighton Beach to pick up illegal immigrants. I wonder why. I wonder why. I wonder why. Sometimes it is what it is, despite the fact that you don't want to hear it said. It is what it is. You know, I wanted to talk about this last year towards the end, but I wanted to wait until after the election and after the official uh, the inauguration. Well, we have after the inauguration of the president of the United States, because I want us to look back, some of us, to really look back and take stock of ourselves. The women's suffrage movement was a decades long fight, excuse me, to win the right to vote for women, to win the right for women to vote in the United States. It took activists and reformers nearly 100 years to win that fight. And the campaign wasn't easy. Disagreements on how to do it threatened to cripple the movement more than once, the same as with the civil rights movement. But on August 18th, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was finally ratified, and it enfranchised all American women, all American women, and declaring that for the first time that they, like men, deserve all the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. Let me say that again. American women, like men, deserve all, not some, but all the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. Of citizenship. A lot of people embrace that, but let me just call it like it is. There's a whole lot of black men that don't. A whole lot of them. We had a chance to view some of them last February at a manufactured uh, uh, Black History Month by the Black Republicans of Georgia. Those guys, those women. Yeah, saw that up close and personal. Now, Jeanette Pickering Rankin was elected as Montana's U.S. Congresswoman in 1916. She was the first woman elected to the United States Congress in 1916, and then she was reelected in 1940. Shirley Chisholm, you remember her, right? Isn't she in your history books? Or did they take that out already? Okay. Shirley Chisholm was the first Black female elected a congresswoman from the state of New York in 1968. 1968, Shirley Chisholm, the first Black female elected congresswoman from the state of Georgia. Of New York. Still thinking about those Georgia Republicans. Now, this portion is dedicated to my young Black men and some of my older Black men who are stuck on some biblical nonsense. Through actions and speech, you became embarrassed and angry when the first Black president of the United States chastised you for not supporting a Black woman for president. Your reasons had nothing to do with qualification. You were just mired in your cesspool of ignorance. Yet you were silent when your choice for president of the United States of America called that female candidate a cunt. Another time, he said she was born dumb. She was born dumb. That was all right. All that was all right with you. My young millennial Black men and some of you older Black men who think that women are never on the level as you, same level as you. Keep in mind, Kamala Harris, I'll call her name, hope I pronounced it right. She was a lawyer, a district attorney, a state attorney general, a U.S. senator, and a vice president of the United States of America. A born dumb cunt? You tolerated that? What kind of a Black man are you? Surely you don't view Black women as my generation did. We called our women Afro queens. You have lost something. You have lost your dignity. You have lost any sense of cognitive acuity. Look it up if you don't understand what it means. Worst of all, you have lost a sense of cultural pride. I hope that you are proudly sitting in your barber chair, laughing at the current attacks on Black history, religious freedom, human rights, and the abrogation of the American promise of liberty and justice for all. You are not ashamed to your race. You are ashamed to humanity for what you have embraced. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But there's so much going on today. I mean, they're trying to write out to get rid of the history of the Tuskegee Airmen. They're being our military is being ordered to end any sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion uh, seminars in their training. Now, let me try to put this in perspective a little bit here, because I know there are a lot of folks out here that they treat diversity, equity, and inclusion as a four-letter word. Well, we live in a diverse society, except for some of you who are perpetually uh, stuck on segregating yourselves. Because there's some of you who aren't like that. You want to go to segregated schools, you want to go to segregated churches, you go to segregated parties. Um, you just don't want to go anywhere that has to be around any people who don't look like you. You try to avoid that like a plague. I just find that that's so stupid. But let's go back to something else, because I want to talk about this whole thing about equity. And to me, equity means if I have 5 cents and you have 5 cents, our 5 cents are equal. If I have a college degree uh, in basket weaving and you have a college degree in basket weaving and everything else measures up equally, we're on the same plane. That's equity. That's equity. Inclusion. You know what inclusion means? I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean exclusion. You get that? And if you don't know what that means, let me try to explain to you. Back in the 1950s and 60s, Black people were excluded from the technical portions of the entertainment industry. And when I say the technical portions, I'm talking about the cameramen and the boom operators and the sound engineers. We were systematically excluded from that. That's a fact. And the way that they did this was saying that only the descendants of people who were already in those positions could get those positions. That was very much true in the entertainment industry. So there was nowhere for definitely no way for blacks to get in, and in fact it excluded a lot of whites unless they were buddy buddy with somebody who would pull them in. Those were jobs prohibited for blacks. That is called exclusion. But here comes the late 1960s, the 1970s, especially when you start having the movies, these call them black exploitation movies coming in, and there began to be a market for um, for African Americans and people of other cultures to become involved in the movie industry. And there was a money incentive in that for the industry. That's when you began to see exclusion fade away and inclusion become a part of it. There were businesses that systemically excluded blacks from reaching anything but a certain level. Uh, that guy who's the president of the United States right now, he had a casino empire that fell apart due to bankruptcy. But in his casino empire, blacks were not allowed in any front office positions. That's your president of the United States. That's your president. That, my friends, is exclusion. But what happens is that those businesses, which brought into their profile inclusion, those businesses seem to have prospered. Not all, but they didn't go into bankruptcy like Donald Trump. And not just I want to pick on Donald Trump because some of y'all are just overly sensitive about saying anything against Donald Trump. So I'm going to try to limit what I say against him. But I will say that diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that's even part of the character of what we call our Declaration of Independence and also the United States Constitution. Come on, y'all. Liberty and justice for all means something. The pursuit of happiness means something. It didn't say for some, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that all men, all men, and all women are created equal. So that's equity, folks. That's in the profile of this United States of America. So anytime you're talking about eliminating equity, eliminating equality, you are talking about going against the United States Constitution. Now, why is that so easily done by someone who professes to be the president of the United States, sworn to uphold? Did y'all listen at the inauguration? Because I know some of you say, I don't want to listen to the inauguration. I don't want to hear it. Well, you needed to hear it and you needed to see it. Because when you become president of the United States and vice president of the United States, you have to put your hand on the Bible and you swear. And what do you swear to? You don't swear to be a good guy. You don't swear to be a good Republican. You don't swear to be a good Democrat. You don't even swear to be a good member of the KKK. Here's what you do swear to when you put your hand on that Bible and raise your hand when the Chief Justice speaks and says, repeat after me. You swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. Let me say that again, because some of you aren't hearing me. You swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. So help me God. So help me God. But guess what, America? Because some of you didn't watch because you had that, almost said a bad word, but you had that dumb stuff that you put on Facebook. I'm not watching. I'm not watching. Turn off your TV or watch something else. Turn it on another channel. Had you watched, you would understand why all of these unconstitutional things are being done by a man who swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Oh, you would not have missed the fact he never put his hand on the Bible. Never. He never put his hand on the Bible. Now, I want you folks who are stuck on stupid to go back because everything is online. And I want you to look at every inauguration that you can find on tape or film. Everything's on YouTube. Look at all of those inaugurations, and I want you to find me one person, just one, sworn in as president of the United States, did not place their hand on a Bible. Now, I was told the reason that he didn't put his hand on the Bible is because it would have set off the fire alarms in the building. Might have been true. So he might be smarter than all of us. But he did not take an oath. He did not take an oath to uphold our Constitution. So doing the unconstitutional thing, doing the immoral thing, well, immorality seems to follow him. So that's not something that I should be concerned about or be surprised at. But doing all of this, he never swore to anything. He never swore to uphold the Constitution. He never he never made an oath to God, which is more powerful and more substantive than any oath you can give to a man. But if you don't believe in God, have you ever heard him talk about his home church, be it Protestant, Catholic, or synagogue? Have you ever? Has anybody said, "Oh, this is our home church"? You lambasted uh, President Barack Obama because of the church that he belonged to, but he belonged to a church. Joseph Biden had a home church, devout Catholic, but y'all didn't want him. You didn't want him. You'd rather have a man that calls a black woman a cunt. That's your qualification for president of the United States, representing the goodwill of all the people. You wanted a man who has 34 felonies against him, yet you expect him to be equitable and to be nice and to be loyal to you. Well, guess what, folks? He owes you no loyalty. You know why he owes you no loyalty? Because you don't owe loyalty to fools. You don't owe loyalty to fools. You laugh at them and you keep moving. And you folks who said, you're not voting for Kamala Harris because she was a woman, guess what you got? And I told some people earlier, hope I'm not running off at the mouth here too much, but I have a tendency to do that. That it's not a racial thing with me. I go back to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, the former wife of a president of the United States, former state senator, former secretary of state, extremely qualified to be president of the United States. But you wouldn't vote for her. Why? She was a woman. Some of you wouldn't vote for her because her husband committed some infidelities, and uh, your whole thing was, well, what kind of woman is she to stand by her man after he did all of that? Well, you know something? None of you were in her or his bedroom. None of you know whatever agreements they may have had that benefited them and their daughter. You don't know. But did that have any bearing on her leadership ability? No, it didn't. Time and time again, she was appointed to leadership positions and she did well. And how well did she do? There were people who hated her, who tried to blame a whole lot of stuff on her. They just happened to be Republicans. She was brought before two hearings. The hearings were put on by predominantly Republican legislators. Think about that. Predominantly, these are the accusers. And guess what? Two times she went before these hearings, and in each of those hearings, they could find no wrongdoing. These were her accusers. But see, that didn't matter to you. It was just being accused. That was enough for you. It was giving you an excuse to exercise that that antiquated thinking that a woman should not be in leadership. And look at all the countries where they have had women leading, and they're still doing well. India, off the top of my head, of course, Great Britain, uh, Mexico, and several others. Can't think of right now. Some of them in South America. But the point is, if you can't get over the fact that women can be in leadership positions, there's something wrong with you. And some of you will go back and you'll cite the Bible and you will say, the Bible, and I got into this before, but y'all won't pay attention to me because most of you will never take the time to study. You don't. But you will say, well, the Bible says a woman needs to be humbled and closed mouth and should never teach a man. And who do you say wrote that? You say Paul wrote that. Paul did not write that. Go to school, learn a little bit. That's part of the pseudographical, I think that's the name for it. It's called, we have it here, it's called the pseudepigraphic text of Paul, which means that Paul didn't write those. Those were written after Paul was dead. Those are written by his students, not written by Paul. If you go back and you look at the history of Paul, Paul had women who traveled with him. Paul had women who led churches that he tutored, that he mentored, who led churches. They were women. So why all of a sudden would he change up and say, okay, women need to be humble and closed mouth? But you'll eat that up because it fits your narrative. But you won't take the time to study. You won't take the time to to go to people or listen to people who know what they're talking about when it comes to this subject. And so what you do, the danger of that is you take that and you transpose it into people like Kamala Harris and Shirley Chisholm and Liz Cheney, because in your mind, you don't want to see a woman in charge of anything. And you know what's sad? You know what's sad? You don't want to put a woman in charge of anything when so many of you come from homes managed by women because the men couldn't handle it. Now, what do you think about women running things? What do you think about that? You want to go tell your mother, your aunt, your grandmother? Some of you had grandmothers who raised you. You want to tell them that women shouldn't be in leadership, that women can't run things, that women can't make things work, that women can't handle adversity. You want to go tell them that? No, you won't. You won't. Because deep in your heart, you know you're wrong. You know you're 100% wrong. And that's sad. But anyway, how did I get this far? How did I get this far? But anyway, talking about uh, just the way things, and I do apologize for the fact that my expected guest uh, did not did probably. I know that he moved into a different position, and I'm pretty sure that as what happens with all of us when we take on a new job or new responsibility, a lot of times we're not able to fulfill those commitments we may have made prior to that. And sometimes these things come up suddenly, especially when you're in an occupation that requires you to have contact with the public. So I understand that. We'll put that off. But we have some interesting guests coming up in the very near future. We're going to have here on issues and answers in a couple of weeks. Reverend Adoral Omar Fisher. You may remember him. We had him on here about 2 years ago. We had him two or three times on our program. He's a preacher. He's involved in prison reform, and he has a lot of success stories. People that he's counseled while they were incarcerated, and these people came out of the prison system and went on to be successful businessmen. And we interviewed several of them. He's coming back with us next month in February 24th. And I'm very much looking forward to him. He has a new book that he's going to tell us about. And we're just going to have a fun listen and learn. Meanwhile, reminding you, you are listening to WCEG Issues and Answers. And this is like open forum today. So if you have anything you want to talk about, please feel free to jump in. I'll try to accommodate you as best I can with this little brain I have here. One thing I do want to talk about. This is something that's on Facebook now. It's on social media. It's in the news, and unfortunately, it goes back to the national political situation that we're in today. Most of you know that I was once, for 25 years, a Philadelphia police officer. That's that book. That's what that book is about. My career as a Philadelphia police officer. You can still pick it up. The Long Blue Walk, My Journey as a Philly Cop. It's on Amazon. You can still get it. Doesn't cost that much. It's less than $15. Come on, help a brother out. The Long Blue Walk, My Journey as a Philly Cop. But um, there were several scary incidents I had as a police officer. There were two incidents that I clearly recall. One happened right after the death of Martin Luther King, where a gentleman, this is in my book, caused a disturbance within a Catholic church. And The disturbance was so much that I was walking the beat around a housing project at that time. And the nuns ran out and informed me that this guy was in their church causing a disturbance. And so he was about a block away from me, but I was able to catch up with him. And just those type of things, you just talk to somebody. You understand? Not going out to lasso anybody. These are back in the days when police officers didn't have radios. I had no radio. Just wanted to talk to the man, tell him that, you know, stay away from that church, that they don't want you in there, blah, 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 blah. Well, this was outside of a playground in Germantown, outside of a housing project. A playground outside of a housing project. No school, no school, and it's spring. Well, he looks around, he sees all these kids or young people in the playground, and he decides he's got one little cop here. I think I want to fight this guy. So he began to fight with me, and we're struggling in the street. And finally, I didn't realize at the time he was high on heroin. We're struggling. I finally get control of the guy, and I get my one arm around his neck, and I'm able to try to dial a phone to call because I had to call out of a payphone to get help. Before I could do that, he breaks loose. I grab him again. We begin to tussle some more. I have him against the wall of a building. And the next thing I know, there are about 40 young people surrounding me. They surrounded me in such a way, their demand was that I let this guy go. Well, at this point, I wasn't going to let him go. So the word came from a guy who was about 30 in the crowd. He says, well, if you don't let him go, we're going to take him from you. And at this point, I'm surrounded. I've got people on all sides of me. I can't even reach my gun. I don't know who that is. Get rid of it. Sorry, I should take it away. I couldn't even reach my gun. Fortunately, a citizen driving by saw what was happening, notified police officers 3 blocks away, and I was rescued from that situation. But imagine, these were 30 people surrounding me. I could not get my gun, and they were going to violently take this prisoner away from me. Another incident, which is in my book, where, again, I'm in an alley with 10 juveniles, not 13 and 14 years old. These are people from 15 to 18 or 19 years old. And made a rookie mistake, and I'm going to go ahead and arrest them. Come on, guys, come with me. Well, a tussle ensued. Again, these were involved, and there were 10 of them. Uh, Eventually, 2 of these people eventually got shot. Unfortunate. But I suffered several injuries, and I was in the hospital for a week or 2 weeks. I can't remember right now, but I was in the hospital for a while. I say that story to bring it a little bit more up to date. January 6th, 2021, I was surrounded by 30 people at one time. I was surrounded at one time by 10. And these were very difficult moments. I cannot imagine those Capitol police officers surrounded by hundreds of people who weren't just threatening to do something, they were doing something. These police officers were overwhelmed by hundreds of people who were spraying them with bear spray, who were hitting them over the head with not fire hydrants, fire extinguishers. There's the one picture, if you see the one police officer who was being squeezed in a doorway, in an elevator doorway, squeezed in there. He was screaming, he was crying, he was in that much agony. And you've seen the pictures. And in spite of what these political manipulators have been able to convince people, this was not a peaceful demonstration. Some of y'all believe that. Hard to believe. It's on the video. Hang Mike Pence, peaceful demonstration, taking feces and spreading it on the doorways, going and sitting in the Speaker of the House's office with your feet on the desk, searching for anybody. You had one man had plastic ties, the kind you handcuff people with, running through plastic ties, looking for senators and yeah, but Miss Pelosi. I'm sorry, I forgot her name for a minute. Uh, you're looking for Pelosi. You're looking for Pence. Pence had to be taken out of his office and down into the bowels of the building through a secret entrance that nobody knew. Peaceful demonstration. You had Congresswoman Boebert, who couple of days before was escorting some of the people who broke into the Capitol that day, escorting them around the building, showing them different things, showing them different doorways, different exits. Y'all forgive all those people. You love them. Well, now, as promised, the President of the United States has pardoned every one of those people who were arrested. Everyone. Almost 1,600 people. Everyone. Doesn't matter that if the cop that you attacked died as a result of either the injury or the trauma you caused them. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that some of these police officers are permanently disabled, suffering disfigurement and injuries that they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. Doesn't matter to you. He pardoned them, and you're happy with that. Some of you, you're still walking around with this back to blue nonsense. Let me tell you, they're all hypocrites. Every single one of you. Every single one of you who who walk around with your back to blue buttons and your back to blue flags, you're all hypocrites. And take this from someone who wore the blue uniform. I'm calling you a coward. I'm calling you a hypocrite because none of you have spoken up about the outrage that was just done. And not only the outrage that was just done, you haven't thought about the consequences of this action. Because guess what? Now, every political rally, every incident where the police officers are called to secure an area where there's a political protest, those officers are in danger. Every single one of them. Every single one. Why? Because the precedent has already been set. The president has said, as long as these people believe in what I believe, and as long as they love me, I'm not going to prosecute them. They can do whatever. They can kill people. We don't care. I don't care. I'll pardon them because they're my people. The precedent has been set. The precedent has been set. Any And you guys need to think about this because, especially my African American kinsmen, you young millennials stuck on your social media and your ability to get on your cell phone and have these disorganized protests anywhere you want at any time when you can get hundreds, if not thousands of people at a location, but totally disorganized, you need to be concerned. Back in the day, when Martin Luther King and so many other leaders organized organized P organized protests, everybody was notified. Police departments were notified. News media was notified. Everyone was notified. Those protests, almost all, were peaceful. And the unpeace always came at the intercession of law enforcement, coming in with hoses, with dogs, with batons, beating people over the head. That's where the unpeace came. But that was their reaction to peaceful demonstrations. Now, you millennials, and I'm picking you out because you're the ones who are guilty. You think you're so darn smart because you can organize a demonstration over social media. And those demonstrations over the past 5, 6 years have shown themselves to be disorganized, and you don't know who's coming in. There's no leadership, there's no direction. You're just saying, be there. And what you have is chaos. So here's the answer to that now. Donald Trump, the president of the United States, is going to authorize the military to come in and deal with the situation, not the police departments, the military. And I don't know whether some of you remember there was what is that? They had it here in Atlanta for a while where the college students freak off or whatever it is they used to have. Another stupid thing. It wound up with good intentions, but it wound up getting out of hand. But one of the first few of those happened in, I believe it's Norfolk, Virginia, on the beach. And what happened? It got out of hand, and the state called in the National Guard. Freaknik, that's what it was. Freaknik. And the National Guard came in, and what they did, their way of handling the situation was to shoot people, to bludgeon people. And that's how they handled it. And it was such an outrage, a national outrage, that it was determined that this would not happen again. They would handle it. They would never call in the National Guard again. Prior to that, if you remember, and some of you don't because you don't know history, Ohio, National Guard, peaceful demonstration. Of course, some of the kids got out of hand. They started throwing rocks at the National Guard. Never a good idea. But what the National Guard did, this military outfit, armed with rifles, what they did is they started shooting unarmed kids. Remember the song Four Dead in Ohio? Well, there might have been four dead, but there were scores and more who were wounded. Can't forget the picture of the the young lady leaning over the body of a dead student. So you millennials, and I'm talking to you because you don't like listening to us older folks. You're going to go out and continue to have your disorganized protests. And those are going to be the inspiration or the impetus for this president to send in the military. And they're not coming in to say, please move. They're not coming in to say, please move. They're going to give you one warning and they're going to start shooting. Now you're going to start having wars, internal wars, which goes into another subject of mine that goes right into that is the fact that you had an insurrection. There were weapons that were recovered. There were weapons that were recovered. Don't listen to the people who tell you there were no weapons recovered. There were weapons recovered. They also are pictures of people who were in trees, up on poles, who had semi automatic rifles. They were not allowed to get into the areas, thank God, to the Secret Service, where they could have done the most damage, but they were there. Now you have the National Rifle Association and all of their lackeys uh, who have made sure that there are tens of thousands of assault rifles in the population right now. Tens of thousands of these assault rifles that are meant for war and meant to be used by soldiers are now in the hands of civilians. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't hunt with an AK-47 or an AR-15. You don't hunt with those. So remember the kid in Kenosha, Wisconsin, at the demonstration? He went, 17-year-old boy. He had an AR-15, and he thought what was a threat was another armed person, and he killed one person, but he shot another person in the shoulder with his AR-15. Guess what happened? It took his whole arm off. That's what an AR-15 does. That's what it was designed for, to do the maximum amount of damage. That's what it was for. Its grandfather was the M16 rifle, which came into use while I was in the service because I was trained on an M14, but the M16 came right into use 1964, 1965, somewhere around there. So now its civilian counterpart, the AR-15, is out there in the public, and there is no reason for it to be out there. There is no reason for this gun to be out there, proliferated as much as it is, unless there are forces underground who intend to do something violent in the future, such as the overthrow of our government. It's already started. The man in your White House now lets you know when he was challenged with that 6 years ago or 8 years ago. What were his word? Was his words? Stand by and stand down. Stand by and stand down. That was your president talking to violent terrorists. And that is a military order. Stand by and stand down. And some of you think, he's just talking. It doesn't mean anything. It means everything. It means everything. And I think some of you need to come out of this cocoon that you're in and come back into the world of reality. And let me make this very clear. Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, is not the worst person in the world. He is not the worst person in the world. He may be the most manipulated person in the world. And that's what he is. Has been quoted several years ago, he's a useful idiot. who has become your president. He was controlled by Vladimir Putin. He envies other dictators. He has a picture of Andrew Jackson on his wall that he values. Did you hear him talk about manifest destiny at his inauguration? Well, some of you who didn't want to listen to that, you didn't hear it, you don't understand it. But manifest destiny was the Protestant declaration that allowed the movement from the East Coast to the West Coast of these United States, where they weren't the United States then, but what it said was that it is God's will for us to dominate this land and go from coast to coast and take whatever we want, kill whoever we want, because it is our manifest destiny to possess this entire land. That justified killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Native Americans. It justified taking what we now call Texas, parts of California, parts of Arizona and New Mexico away from Mexico. We stole those states from Mexico and made them part of the United States. That's manifest destiny. Now, this guy who's in your president, who just talked about manifest destiny at his inauguration, he wants to take over Panama, a sovereign nation. He wants to take over Greenland, a sovereign nation. And he wants to take over Canada, a sovereign nation. In fact, he purposely doesn't call the premier of Canada, the leader of Canada, he doesn't call him premier, he calls him governor every time he talks about that. Him. That's where he wants to take this country. This is a draft dodger who paid his way not to go into the army, who paid a doctor to forge medical records. He wants to go to war. He wants manifest destiny. How many American lives, how many foreign lives will be lost for a man who, when you look at him, who he really is, he's a weak coward who has become a useful idiot for the rich and the powerful. That's who you have today. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got today. That's all I got. It's been wonderful speaking with you. Sorry for the long rant. Most of it was, as we said back in my West Point prep school, was extemporaneous. I hadn't planned on it, but I just would, if nothing else, stimulate your thoughts. Unlike most talk show hosts, I know that I don't have a lock on what's right or what's wrong. I make mistakes. You have people like Sean Hannity and all those folks on Fox News who uh, pretend that everything that they say is right. They're never wrong. I know that I've been proven wrong. I've been proven wrong many times. So, which is why on my show I ask you to text in or call in your opinions. Uh, I welcome that. I see there may be some uh, comments that I might have missed in my exuberance in getting out to you what's purging my soul, so to speak. But I apologize for that. But I hope that it's been a great experience for us all, a great experience here at WCEG. And hopefully, I will see you again soon, either here on Issues and Answers or maybe on Mind Matters with Dr. Cassandra Wanzo, her program. She's had two very informative programs that Mind Matters, it comes on every other Wednesday. You need to watch that program and pay attention. Dr. Cassandra Wanzo. But right now, this is Norman A. Carter Jr., Issues and Answers on WCEG. I'm signing off. I hope you have a great day.